All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome back. It's good to be back, I think. Not entirely sure yet. We'll find out as we go on. Joining me today is my host and co-host, Peter of Gonna Go For It fame. Well, Infinite Regress, Jackson.
Wait. Okay.
I heard there are shenanigans afoot. Yes, there are definitely already shenanigans. Yes. I am the Infinite Jackson. No, there's no Jackson.
Well, we're
kidding, folks.
We're getting there.
Jake Nelson says, "Am I in the right place? I came for a Jackson Wheat stream." You are in the right place. This is famously the place where we host an infinite number of Jackson Wheat streams. This is like the scene from The Matrix.
Yeah, I seem to have messed up quite a bit. Well, so I can't explain. There we go. We're almost there.
Okay.
There we are.
Shenanigans gonna shenanigans. Yes. Hello. Welcome, Non-Jackson.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Okay. So I can't explain, by the way, because I spent last week I had an entire week off because you were graciously giving me 1 week off, and I wanted to upgrade my OBS and spent an entire week trying to have it not crash and did not succeed. So things are a bit mixed up, but we're ready to start, and hopefully it's not going to crash, and we're still on the old version of OBS because I have just one show where I need an automatic scene change because of the intro. So it's timed. When I start the intro, it's timed, and after so many seconds it starts over to another screen. That particular plugin hasn't been updated yet for OBS 29. So because of that one show, I can't go to a next setup, which it's sad, but we'll get there. Yeah, Anjer, I do train, and I feel embarrassed because Ember is here, and I'm currently trying to teach Ember how to do things in OBS, and then screwing up myself. So you can see, no one's perfect. But
well,
anyway.
I mean, that's true. Yeah, no one is perfect.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, we have Nestlig. Hello.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Yeah, Nestlig and I have been busy this past week making content for all you folks out there. So expect a new video incoming fairly soon. So we did that, yeah.
It's pretty packed this time, but I think it will be very interesting. At least I find it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a thick one. This is a thick video that we did. Well, it's like every time we transition to the next group, we end up writing like a really long video because you have to go through all the changes, all the transitional fossils that don't exist, that lead you from one group to the next. And there sure are a lot of transitional fossils to not cover, let me tell you.
Yeah. It's often the case that when you go back to one common ancestor, you have to travel a while to get to the next common ancestor with the out group of the previous video. And because extinction happens, that's why,
and
so like
and we have to keep in mind, because this is a discovery made by I forgot, stupid effing toddlers, I think it is. I forgot, but they wrote a book, and so it apparently, while the layers are laid down, the fossils move up and down into different layers.
Oh, yes, of course. Right.
That's another thing you have to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, there will be no yodeling on this channel. Not allowed. Uninvited. Disallowed.
Yodeling?
Banned. Blocked. All
yodeling?
For yodeling. There will be no Yes. There'll be no yodeling, no transitional fossils, none of that.
No offense to the Austrians.
No,
Well,
lots of offense. I hope that they're offended.
hold on, but there are two kinds of yodeling, because you have yodeling in the European sense, which is predominantly Switzerland, Austria,
Yeah.
thereabouts,
Yeah.
the south of Germany. But you also have American
Mhm.
yodeling. So,
Yeah.
which is part of, I think it's part of bluegrass.
Oh, I know. Okay. I'm sorry, folks. I'm very slow. It took me a moment to realize what you were referring to. You're referring to Dapper Dinosaur's transitional fossils video that has the yodeling. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. It's my bad. I didn't realize it. It took me a moment. I was just like, yodeling? What on earth does yodeling have to do with anything? Oh, that's right.
I think he uses that instead of his original song, because the original song was like copyrighted for some reason, I think. So now
Oh,
he uses
I
the
wouldn't be
yodeling.
surprised.
Yeah.
Everything's copyrighted nowadays. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You're living in
DM,
a tech dystopia.
yeah.
Well,
DM scientists are people wing said, so I hear you're a creationist now. I don't know who told you that. Should we all be creationists now? No, probably not. What's the university's position? Well, this university
well,
is an intelligent design.
In name only.
In-
name
in-
only.
Yeah.
in all fairness, you are a creationist, Jackson, because you create YouTube content.
You know what? You're right.
See,
You are correct.
yes. So you
No,
are.
that makes him a creator. That makes him a creator.
A creatorist. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Creatorist.
I'm sticking with creationist. It sounds nicer. I mean,
Yeah.
if Kent Hovind can say evolutionism, because
That's true.
according to him, that's it sounds worse and sounds less believable. I mean, as opposed to creation science evangelism, so that's also not believable. Okay, I don't. Logic of these people
Why is Smitty
evades
saying,
me.
why is Smitty saying anchovies?
I
Oh, it's a SpongeBob reference. Oh, I get it.
actually thought
Wow.
about. I was thinking about SpongeBob today, because I went to Wendy's this morning, and I don't know if you guys have seen their, what is it, like nacho burger or something like that, but it looks like the Krabby Patty that killed the health inspector. I thought about that when I saw it. I went, oof.
Smelly smells. It's really smelly. Anchovies. Anchovies.
Jackson is a
I
content
think
creationist.
the first season of SpongeBob was really brilliant. Like how can you make that stuff? Yeah, first season. Yeah.
I believe in Jackson. Does that make me a creationist? Yes. No. Kent Hovind is a doctor. Yeah. No. We're the university we're going to be attending today is equally accredited as the one that Hovind allegedly went to. So
I was just about to say that. Yeah, they are exactly. One is a doctor in the exact same way. The other is a university in
Correct.
the exact same way.
And on Jack confirmed, yodeling is part of bluegrass. So if we need a copyright-free yodel, I do have one, because I hold the copyright.
Yeah.
Because I hold the copyright to the website Songs On. It's
okay.
My friend composed the song and sings it. So we can yodel.
Okay.
Copyright free. Because I'm not going to give you a strike.
I think all yodeling should be immediately copyrighted. That way we can't show it on the channel. Sorry. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah. Hello, my name is Kent Hovind. Yeah, folks, I'm having to, well, I'll be finishing my master's this semester, and I can promise you the first lines of my thesis are not "Hello, my name is Jackson Wee."
See, that's so disappointing.
I can promise.
That's so disappointing.
Pretty sure if I did, they'd say, "No, you're restarting."
Yeah.
So, anyway,
this is not a picture of my wife. Oh, no, this is not my wife. It's just a picture of her.
This is a picture of my wife.
Yeah.
The thing is, I love that picture and all the memes that have come from it, and it makes me angry that Kent Hovind also understands it, so and makes jokes about it. It's like it's dead to me now.
Well, what you could do,
Anyway.
you could every single time you show a picture, you could say, "This is not a fossil. This is just a picture of one."
Or you could take his degree and say, "This is not a degree.
Yeah,
It's not even a picture of a degree," or something. All right. Anyway, so yeah, so we're gonna be we're not getting copyright struck today. I sure hope. We're gonna be going back to DiscoveryU, the fake and unaccredited university, which isn't a university. It's just a, it's just a website. That's all it is. It's literally just a website. It has no accreditation whatsoever.
It's basically a blog. Yeah.
It is a blog, yes, with some YouTube videos. And that's all it is. PragerU is the same way. You will not get...
It's just lines on paper. Yeah, exactly. It's just lines on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. PragerU is not a university. It's not accredited by any body of accreditation. You can't watch their videos and get any sort of life or occupational experience from them. In fact, I would argue that PragerU only takes away your intelligence by watching those videos. But,
It's also heavily funded by a particular industry, so it's not surprising the type of views they're pushing as well.
Yep. PragerU is heavily funded by conservative and fossil fuel interests, which is why they push so many videos on climate change isn't that bad or climate change isn't real. I mean, it kind of depends on where they fall on the spectrum, because the conspiracy goes from, climate change is real, but we're not causing it, to no, climate change isn't real. We don't have any effect on the earth at all. And it's
and then another thing is, climate change is actually good. Plant food. CO is plant food.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that all these tropical plants are literally burning out here, but don't worry about that, I guess.
Did I recently see someone mention that if you want to insure your house in Florida, that the rates are different for different insurances depending on where in Florida you live, because they figured out this is going to be sea soon, so the rates are a lot higher there.
I mean, that's true in every state. Yeah, that's true in every state where you have that sort of situation. Yes. But yeah, I mean, the government will tell you, oh, we don't believe in global warming, but the insurance company's like, we sure do.
Yeah. Your house is going to be in the sea soon, so you're going to pay more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to be beachfront property in the next century. So,
I forget his name. I think it's they have this guy called Johan Kepler, I think. And he's like a funny guy who goes to Trump rallies. He interviews people at Trump rallies. And there's one guy he interviewed. He's like, "Oh, are you happy with Trump's presidency?" "Oh yeah, I'm very happy with Trump's presidency. I'm doing very well, actually." "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I work at a debt relief company." "I'm doing very well at my work." Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, it's pretty pretty sad. There's so much we could say about all that nonsense. And the great thing about PragerU is now I predicted a few years ago that PragerU would get into creationism, because they have far right politics and climate change denialism, and those fit extraordinarily well with also creationism. And so I was saying years ago, I wonder when they're going to get into creationism. And surely enough, here they are. They've started doing videos with Stephen Meyer. So they have broken into the anti-evolution crowd too, because of course they have. They're grifters. It's what they're going to do. So, I mean, I'm sure they believe the nonsense that they say, but it's just, oh well. Anyways, nothing we can do about it now. Okay. Well, we're gonna go back to.
My co-host just promised me that he's going to be quiet for the entire show.
Okay.
Let's hope so.
Oh yeah, Icarus says climate change is not real. Climate change isn't caused by humans. Climate change is always happening. It's not bad. We can't do anything about it. It's too late. Yes, exactly right. 100%. All right, so we're going to go back to DiscoveryU. We were taking the course, the only course that currently is free, and that's Discovering Intelligent Design. We were on, section 4, chapter 13, I think. So at the end of chapter 13 is what we were on last time.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is all about common ancestry, except it's really bad. There's like no citations anywhere. It's just kind of like vague arguments, and if you weren't as into the anti-evolution stuff as we are, you wouldn't know what they're talking about because it's just so vague. So
is this like is this more like a legend where the first page of a chapter like gives out the entire chapter is about? Is it this type of thing, or like it's almost like just a bullet points what they are giving here? Yeah.
But like this is the whole course. Like there's just no citations anywhere in it. Everything is just these bullet points, but there's no data to go with the bullet points. Oh, Trudy Stubbs for $1.99 says must away, but have a great stream. Thank you very much, and you have a wonderful evening. But yeah, there's just no citation for anything. Literally, not even their own intelligent design like blogs. There's just no citations anywhere. It's kind of funny. And if you're just and what's even funnier about this is like, if you're like, God forbid, you're a teenager or a kid or whatever, and your parent is making you read this and then like argue with your high school or middle school science teacher or whatever, if they know anything about biology, which they may not, but if they do, and you argue some of these points with them, you're going to get absolutely flattened because these are terrible arguments. And it's like, and then as soon as you get flattened, you're going to feel embarrassed and you're going to be like, well, why'd they lie to me? Or if you do the research on these things, you realize, oh, well, why did they lie to me about this? And then you're more likely to leave their camp, right? At least that's what I would think.
Yeah, and I also think you may face a how do you call this situation when the students like challenging you to a public debate or something like that. Yeah, they want to be they want to play the God is not that movie story basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Oof. All right. Alrighty. So we'll start with number H. The one assumption most are not, and by most I mean most evolutionists are not willing to question, is universal common ancestry itself. So that's not an assumption. That is a conclusion based on lines of data.
Yeah,
right. That's not just
based on the evidence.
Now, Darwin thought that there may be multiple like universal common ancestors. He thought there may have been multiple like origins of life or whatever, and that not all life on Earth is related by one universal tree of life. That could be the case. There's nothing theoretically stopping that from being the case. So, but like as of right now, as it stands currently, the consensus is that there is only there is a single tree of life that contains all organisms.
Yeah, maybe not a single root or trunk. Like of course, like a horizontal gene transfer was even more prevalent in the beginning, in the prokaryotic stage, especially. So yeah, but it's all connected into one phylogenetic structure.
Right.
Yeah.
This next one's kind of funny because it's lying about a couple different things. Different genes are telling different evolutionary stories because all organisms are not ancestrally related. Okay, so I would challenge anyone to define what this means, because we've talked about, I do remember we talked about last time, like horizontal gene transfer
Mhm.
and incomplete lineage sorting.
Yes, I think this is just it. Like they don't understand that the the trees of genes don't always matches the trees of
Right.
species. That's the problem they always have. Always.
Mhm. Right. Can anyone just send a bunch of emotes? As far as I know, so yeah, sorry about that. I YouTube sent me a message that was like you can do channel memberships or whatever. I like barely vaguely set it up. I haven't really looked too much into it. If you want to do that, I don't care. It's up to you. Sorry. I haven't
You
I've been really
used
busy.
to do we have a wheat straw emoji?
I should.
Just use the wheat. The wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't looked too much at it. I was playing around with it a little bit, but not very much. Thrawn Mula, sorry. Yeah, you can send emotes. It's fine. I don't. As of right now, I don't think it costs anything. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at it more later.
Mhm.
Anyway, the thing about, well, and it's not even just that. It's not even just horizontal gene transfer, which we can like observe in populations of bacteria. We know
Mhm.
incomplete lineage sorting happens, unless you want to argue like every single species is a separate creation. That's the only way you could like get around incomplete lineage sorting.
Yes.
That's literally the only way. And they don't do that. Some creationists do, but intelligent design people pretty much never do that because they accept old ages of the earth. They're usually fine with. I don't see an option to join. Okay. I'll look at it later tonight, but it should be, there should be some channel membership. There should be 3 tiers, or I thought anyway. If not, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll work on it tonight. Um, but intelligent design people acknowledge that the Earth is old, and if you acknowledge that the Earth is old, but like every species is independently created, you have this really weird, like just absolutely bizarre history of the Earth, right?
Yeah,
You know,
it's basically what Lamarck believed. Like Lamarck didn't believe in common ancestry. He basically believed that
mhm.
every species had its own independent history, and that the
Right,
more advanced species were the older species. Like, oh, they had more time to develop into complex organisms like that, and the simplest
right.
ones are the newer ones, basically. Yeah.
Right, because a spontaneous generation would happen, which would give rise to new organisms, which could then
Hmm.
like evolve and become more complex. Right, yeah,
Yeah.
which yeah, if you're under the impression that like God is creating a new species of beetle like every 10,000 years or so, like that's really weird. I mean, I can't say that's impossible. It's
He's
that
really
could be the
fond of
case.
beetles.
He's super fond of beetles, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, why?
I
What
mean,
would be the
I
point
can't
of that?
blame him. Beetles are neat. I can blame him. So yeah.
I guess that's true. I don't know. It's
Mhm.
super weird. It's like, why would God do that? I don't understand. It really doesn't make any sense to me. But he also makes them in such a way that they always fall within like a nested hierarchy. And so you have to be
Yeah.
like, why would you do that? Anyway. So yeah, that's super weird. So yeah, it's incomplete lineage sorting, horizontal gene transfer. These contribute to different stories. But another one is just having different mutation rates. Genes
Hmm.
that mutate faster, um, or mutate differentially,
Yeah.
are gonna result in like different phylogenies, right?
I get what's happened. You can also get something called long branch or short branch attraction. Basically, if there are two or more
Right,
lineages, part of several that are getting more substitutions over time, then that can cause a signal
right,
to make it appear that these two are more similar to each other, and the other ones, because they are changing more slowly, then that it makes them appear more similar to each other, just because one is evolving faster. Yeah.
right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Hmm.
Um,
Of course,
But yeah, I
scientists are
mean,
well aware of this, of these effects, so they have to take these things
yes.
into account when they construct their hypotheses. Like phylogenetics, the methodology is very complicated. It's highly statistical. It's not
Mhm.
easy to do. It's not as simply as, oh, I use an online database or online engine or calculator to, and the end, the result that it gives is the end conclusion, and that's
Mhm.
basically what AIG did. When you remember in the hippo
Yeah.
style that they did.
Yes.
That's basically what the AIG did, and it's like, oh, why doesn't this simple phylogenetic generator gives a different result? Because it's a very simple tool. It is not very sophisticated. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, and also they were like, it what did they even say? It was like it was a thing that um it was a phylogenetic problem that had been identified like what 20 years ago, something like that. And they're like,
They
yeah,
used
there's
the cytochrome. Yeah, they used cytochrome B, I think. Cytochrome
something like that,
B
yeah.
sequences, and it showed that basically the tooth wells were paraphyletic based on those sequences. So like I think like the sperm wells nested
Yes.
among the baleen wells
baleen,
instead
yeah.
of other tooth wells. Yeah,
Right.
but of course that was an error because the the sequences were very short, or like the branch lengths of the sperm well group were very short, and so what you get is something called short branch attraction, and so you get a different result than you expect. And of course, this issue, again, as you alluded before, this issue was identified in the 1990s
Yeah.
and resolved in the early 2000s. And 20 years later, you have AIG making making a fuss about this.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's not easy to do any of these things. All these things take time and thought and effort, and them just being like, well, I just ran it through this one program. It's like, good for you. I don't care. Like, what do you want? It's yeah, genetics, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
you have to put a little bit more effort into it than
Yeah.
I just downloaded, the sequences and just ran them in this one program one time. Come on.
Yeah.
Plus,
Also, was it the bonobo style or the chimpanzee style where we discussed incomplete lineage sorting?
that was
Which,
the bonobo's tail.
right. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, if you want to know more about the incomplete lineage sorting, check out that video. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One other
Yeah,
thing.
exactly right.
Fishhead Salad said he meant to say change their name to God of the Gaps University. I don't think that's accurate because
Yes.
what they're trying to do
No.
is they're trying to poke holes in evolution. So we should make it the God of the Holes University, which would make for a really cool abbreviation because then we'd have Goth U. And
That's true.
It's a thing. We need to.
I would be down for that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. God of the holes. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
But also like another thing that we pointed out in what was it? It was one of the really early ones. I think it may have been was it Eve's Tale, I think, where we talked about how like gene trees don't always line up with like species trees, for instance. But that's another
I did it. Do you mean incomplete lineage sorting or something different?
Well, we did. Well, I mean, yeah, we did talk about that, but it was.
Yeah.
I think because we also discussed a little bit of that in Eve's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyway, yeah, but yeah. So basically, it's complicated. It's not always super easy. So it takes effort and time, and you have to learn about a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of math involved with phylogenetics and stuff. There's a lot of math. Okay. Common design is often a superior explanation to common descent. I can't think of one single instance, but anyway.
That's the funniest one so far.
Yeah, like
in what way does it predict the things we see better? Like the nested hierarchical pattern. When you bring this up to them, this pattern of traits and even genetics occurs in a twin nested hierarchy.
Right.
they will first attempt to deny that there is even such a thing,
Yes.
or then they will say, God could just have created that in that way, and that settles it. So
Yeah.
of course it is ad hoc, and there's not an explanation. It's just
Right.
because
You're right. They deny it first. They know that intelligent design does not predict a nested hierarchy. They know that. And that's why they deny it first. Their first argument is deny, deny, deny. Then once they are like kind of pushed into a corner, then it becomes, yeah, well, God could have just done it that way. You can't say God didn't do it that way. And it's like, well, yeah, I can't say he didn't do it that way. That's certainly possible, but it's not predicted by intelligent design. It is explicitly predicted by evolution. And then you can point to like as Dan and Erica do, the sequences where they're unconstrained. So these sequences that where they're accruing mutations at like the background rate, and they're not coding for anything, and they still form nested hierarchies. That shouldn't be the case. If like Gulo is an example I like to go to. So Gulo is or was involved in producing L-gulonolactone oxidase, and so this helps us break down vitamin C, or sorry, helps us produce vitamin C. But we
it's just one step of the synthesis of vitamin C.
Right. Yeah, it's one step in that process. It helps us produce vitamin C, but it was broken in the common ancestor of all haplorhine primates. So all apes, including us, obviously, old and New World monkeys and tarsiers, we all have this broken Gulo gene, so we cannot produce for ourselves vitamin C. We have to get it from fruit, which primates already eat large quantities of fruit. So breaking this gene didn't really have any negative side effects as long as you still live in the forest where there's lots of fruit. If on the other hand, you're on a boat for long periods of time and you don't have access to fruit, well, then suddenly it becomes a problem.
you eat dry biscuits for months on end.
Yeah. Then suddenly it becomes a problem.
Yes.
But Gulo doesn't do. We know that it's not producing the enzyme that it produces in all other species, right? We know this. We can look at it, and you can do transcriptomic analyses of different tissues, and and all this sort of stuff. And I've had conversations with intelligent design proponents about this on Twitter, and they tie themselves up into knots, being like, well, maybe it has some clandestine function we just don't know about yet. Like in monkeys only? Why? What's the what? Based on what? They suddenly turn into, well, maybe we just don't know what it does. Like, we know it does the same thing in like all other mammals. What are you talking about? What? And so it's super bizarre argument. But because they don't like the idea that any part of our genome is non-functional.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because that flies in the face of the genetic entropy argument, which is like things are becoming progressively more non-functional. So none of it makes any sense.
Most of the genome is functional, but everything is breaking down for thousands of years. It's more okay.
Now you're just expecting creationists to be consistent. That's something they have never been.
My bad.
Yeah.
My favorite videos that Dan Stern Cardinal makes over on the Creation Myths channel are the videos where he like pits two creationist ideas against each other. It's like even the lore isn't consistent, that sort of thing. It's really funny. So he'll do genetic entropy versus the genome is 100% functional, and it doesn't work, or something like that. So anyway,
but it's also you can also point to like instead of looking at unconstrained sequences, you can even look at other markers such as ERVs. Like even if you assume erroneously that every single ERV is functional, it doesn't matter ERVs are the result of unique insertion events, like viruses inserting themselves into the genome approximately randomly. Like, of course, not completely random, but still it's still unspecific enough for it to be a very, very unlikely for the same virus to have inserted itself at the same location multiple times. So you can even look at that as well.
And the cool thing is, there are actually some human populations today that have ERVs in their genome that not all humans have, right? And then we share a very, very large proportion of ERVs with just chimps and bonobos, and as well as gorillas and orangutans. And like all gibbons have their own family of like, or have a certain family of like transposons that only gibbons have, and so like creationists will accept these things for other groups, but just not for humans.
I had to bite my tongue.
They'll say like,
I had to bite my tongue when you said
what?
That. When you said so that we now have humans with ERVs that other humans don't have, I was going to ask, are these anti-maskers? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, actually. I don't remember.
Could also be anti-vaxxers, by the way. I'm just
Well, the coronavirus is not a retrovirus, so it doesn't insert itself into the genome.
Well, he was just being facetious.
But... Yeah, I know. I was just being pedantic.
I really enjoyed doing the anti-vax video that we did on Robert Kennedy. I thought that one was pretty fun to make. He's an nitwit.
Yeah,
he's just a tool, and I really hate seeing him on the news. It just fills me with the ick. So anyway, we can move on to the next chapter.
It's just he says the craziest things, and the journalist cannot ignore it because crazy, stupid person says crazy things. Headlines, yay!
Yeah, put it on the New York Times. Yeah. All right, we can go to chapter 14.
I did have a note. Okay, my dog came back on this word. Damn. Hit.
Peter is currently unavailable right now. Please leave a message after the tone. Beep.
Yeah.
He's just giving you kisses, Peter.
Hit. Yeah. Well, no, not really. Not really. Not really. Okay. Let's go back to this thing. I did want to
fakes and mistakes, I think.
I did have something to say about Jay.
I hear an echo.
Yeah, because
Peter,
hold on. I'm still trying to get this thing off me. Go. Doesn't work. Get a dog, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Okay. Sit. Okay, let's hope this works.
I don't think you should use your fingers, because I think I think he thinks the finger is like a sausage that you give him.
He's just getting you, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm still stronger. Okay. This is going to be a problem. Damn.
In the meantime, so really that chapter didn't address anything about like the actual methodology of phylogenetics. Like it didn't say anything about it at all. It's literally just saying there are some complicating factors while performing phylogenies, which nobody denies and nobody said otherwise. So I don't really understand what the point of like using these as the core of your argument is. I don't get that.
These are I think they're just like I would describe them as sound bites. Just
Yeah.
things that are easy to remember for even the stupidest people online to repeat over and over and over again. Just like mindless mantras, I would say. That's what the purpose of this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm a little
Peter,
out
are you
of
able to access?
I'm a little out of breath, but at least I won for now. So what?
That's good.
I had a great joke.
The war is never over. The war is never over, Peter.
I had a great joke when it comes to J on screen. Common design is often a superior explanation to common descent, which is because, let's say, a pastor has kids or preacher has kids. They look alike. If the neighbor's wife gives birth to a kid that looks surprisingly a lot like the pastor, it's probably because it has a common designer, not common descent.
Right.
Well, that took a while to get my joke out.
Man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tired already. So shall we continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Chapter 14, please. Yeah. The fakes and mistakes, I think, is what it's called.
Did we cover chapter 1 through 11, or we just skip to 13
No,
last
so
time?
it's like space stuff, abiogenesis stuff, and I was like, I don't care.
Oh yeah.
This
I understand.
This is going to be fun. Every single time we change over to another page, then we need to adjust how it's displayed on screen. So there's not one setting that goes across the board because obviously this hasn't evolved yet. Doesn't have a common ancestor. So it wasn't one designer currently. I hate it when people do that. If you make a setting, make it work for the entire website.
You would think. However, we're dealing with unintelligent designers here. People,
yeah.
So all right. So main point, or chapter 14.
I would say unintelligent deniers.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, exactly. So chapter 14 is fakes and mistakes. I can imagine we're going to be talking about freaking, oh shoot, what is it? Like Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man. I'm sure they're going to Heckle's drawings. I see it in there. Okay. Explore famous frauds and icons which demonstrate microevolution. Wait, why would a fraud demonstrate the thing that you believe in?
Wait,
isn't that the opposite of what a fraud is?
It's a fraud and it's trivial at the same time.
Correct. It's trivial evidence for my position, but it's also fraudulent. I guess I don't know. I don't understand how that works, but all right.
Maybe they will say it's fraud because it's misrepresented as macroevolution.
Or maybe they're trying to say explore famous frauds ... and icons which demonstrate. So they're saying icons which demonstrate
maybe
I don't like I guess maybe they could have like switched that around to make it more clear. Or maybe they could like explore famous like evolutionary frauds and as well as icons which demonstrate. I don't know. Maybe.
But the frauds the frauds they keep bringing up are all macroevolution according to them because it's a new species. It's a new kind of human. So that's macro, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
Did we mention consistency? I think so.
Yeah, I think we did. Have you ever found a false or misleading claim made by the media or in a textbook? Wow, that's
made by the media.
That is
have you ever been to our
massive
website?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to our
massive.
Yeah.
There's actually a really good book on false and misleading claims by the media. It's titled "Manufacturing Consent" by Noam Chomsky. You guys should all read it.
I thought false claims made by the media was called Fox News.
Okay, fair enough.
Might be me.
Fox News, Newsmax.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it OAN or whatever? There's so many of them now. So many conservative,
Hmm.
crazy guys. Okay, I can define recapitulation as a theory that holds that the development of an organism, ontogeny, recapitulates its evolutionary history, phylogeny. Okay. I can evaluate embryological evidence for common ancestry by examining underlying evidence and reasoning, including the facts that evolutionists one sometimes overstate similarities between vertebrate embryos during their early stage of development, when in fact there are many differences. Haeckel's drawings. Two, sometimes allege that vertebrate embryos contain gill slits reflecting fish ancestry, when in fact evidence shows that humans have folds of skin in their neck rather than gills. And three, well, they're just going full Kent Hovind, aren't they? And three, sometimes claim that vertebrate embryos are similar during a midpoint stage called the pharyngula or phylotypic stage, when in fact embryos of different species show significant differences in body size, body plan, growth patterns, and timing of development. Not if they're showing the phylotypic stage, their body plan is going to be the same. That's the whole point. What? Huh? Anyway, I can evaluate.
Can we pause for a moment at the
yeah, sure.
the last
Go ahead.
Peter, can you go back a bit?
Yes, we also have a super chat, Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
from Savage Quetzalcoatlus, third humorous Cobra for $2. I believe you are viewing false claims by media. You are 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
Quetzalcoatlus, third humorous. What is that even? Is that a Dapper thing? Is that a thing Dapper said? Okay, you were saying Nestle?
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Like the first bullet point was accurate about it accurately described recapitulation, but it should have stated that recapitulation is no longer accepted. Of course, that's the one thing missing.
I would say yes and no. Like broadly, yes. The embryos do not recapitulate the adult stages of like their ancestors, right? We know this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't go through an amphibian stage in our development. We don't go through a reptile stage, blah, blah, blah. We know that. Okay. There are some things for which you can make a recapitulatory argument. For example, the formation of our jaws. So when our jaws first, when they start becoming ossified, the bones, the what is it? Is it the malleus and incus move upwards, and the dentary becomes the sole bone on the down here on the bottom. So in that sense, that's and in fact, this very same genes that control the development of the malleus and incus in reptiles and birds and amphibians are also involved in that. So basically, they form and then they move upwards to become our inner ear bones. So in that sense, that's recapitulatory. Another example that I like to give when I give at work sometimes is flatfish. So when flatfish are born, plaice, sole, flounder, they look like normal little bilaterally symmetrical fish. They just look completely normal when they're larvae. But as they get older, they become asymmetric. The eye moves from one side of the head and goes to the other side. And we, in fact, have fossils where the eye is in the midpoint on the head as an adult. So we can see in the fossils how that, how it goes from this side over here and then all the way around. And we'll talk about that. There's going to be I think a flounder's tail later on. So we'll talk about that in more detail.
I think if you define recapitulation in a sense where one structure is a modified version of an older structure, so you can see this modification. Sometimes you can see this modification happening during development. So in that sense, it is recapitulation. I would avoid, my personal opinion is, I would avoid that because the old meaning of recapitulation is basically already taken, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. And in that sense, yes, I would agree. I think there should be a different term for it. I can't personally think of one. I haven't seen one in the embryological literature I've looked at, because they typically use the term they typically use recapitulate. But I agree, we should avoid a
Yeah.
term that has this negative connotation with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um,
Right.
3 is just the peppered moth, or the next one's just the peppered moths. Blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah.
Do you have
Okay.
something to say about the sometimes the evolutionists overstate the similarities between vertebrate embryos during the early stage of development? They
Yeah.
cite Haeckel's drawings again. Do we need to do we need to cover Haeckel's drawings again? Do we need to go
Well,
over that
okay,
again?
broadly, the thing. So, what Haeckel's drawings were describing in his, in like the mid 1800s, uh, were the pharyngula or phylotypic stage. So,
Yes.
the phylotypic stage exists. It objectively
Yes.
exists. You are at this point, if you try to argue it doesn't, you're just going to get laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I was reading a paper not too long ago about the phylotypic stage in Drosophila. So basically, what you have with the phylotypic stage is you have, it used to be, there was this idea of like the funnel model, where you start out really similar, the embryo starts out really similar, and they get progressively more different as they grow. It's not really the
Mm-hmm.
case. Turns out it's more like you start out really different, then you get to a point where they're fairly similar, then you get really different again, and that's kind of
Yes.
interesting. And there are some genetic factors that are involved that explain why that's the case. And for
Yeah.
like model organisms, we've kind of worked out those factors, like for zebrafish, fruit flies, uh, you know, things like that. We have a pretty good understanding of why that's the case. Chicken embryos, mice embryos, things like that.
Yeah.
But just saying, like,
And one of the reasons why the embryo first starts out as very different is because like the eggs can be very different too,
mm-hmm,
and that's like the morphology. That's what the morphology. The embryo can
mm-hmm,
start out very different as well. And then, I guess as you mentioned, in the midpoint stage, during the phenotypic stage, they look very similar. They're so similar, in fact, that if the researchers don't label the embryos, then they can confuse the embryos between each other.
mm-hmm.
They are very similar. Of course, there are always still some. They aren't perfectly identical
Right.
like twins, of course, but it's easy to confuse the two. That's the point. So they need to be labeled. They need to be labeled.
You've probably
Yeah.
seen the meme on Twitter that people sometimes do, whether they'll post like a dolphin or an elephant embryo or something, and they'll say, "Do you believe this has rights?" And you'll get 100 people saying, "Yes, it
Yeah.
has full human rights." Well, that's an elephant, sir, or something like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen also something like that playing out on television, or at least on YouTube, like a video on YouTube where
yeah,
one guy shows a picture of a dolphin embryo and like, oh,
right.
this is a dolphin, sir. And like, oh, yeah, that was a. Of course, I would say it's a dirty trick. It's not a
No,
very
I
very hard
agree.
argument, but yeah, but still
I
really funny.
agree.
Still funny.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're not going to change anybody's mind by doing that. It's just to make fun of
Yes,
them.
exactly. Yeah.
You're. It's not a good argument. Yeah, it's just to be funny. But like, I do think it is a little funny. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a good argument. But the point simply that we're making is, yes, they actually do start out as very different, and then they converge on these more similar body plans, and then they get very different again. But the phylotypic stage is shared by organisms that have the same body plan, right? So if you're looking at the phylotypic stage for vertebrates, all vertebrates have the same body plan. Remember, by body plan, they typically mean they are in the same phylum. So arthropod, like Drosophila, have the same body plan. I was looking at a paper on sponges and their phylotypic stage. But again, sponges have, well, I hesitate to say body plan. They don't really have much of a body plan at all.
They don't even have a they almost don't even have symmetry even. Yeah.
Yeah, they're asymmetric. Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, so it's they're sponges. They're in the same phylum though. But anyway, I can evaluate the account of the standard
Okay,
story.
one thing about the gill slits, like they say that human embryos just have folds of skin. No, they aren't technically. It's true, they aren't technically slits because they are not open.
Right.
Like they don't open in the throat, but they are still very specific. They are just folds. They are actually structures with nerves, like major nerves and major blood vessels that
Right.
become like one of the nerves is the vagus nerve even, and a very significant thing that in fish stays in the normal distance between the brain and in the gill, but in tetrapods it goes to a specific detour around one major artery and back up again to the larynx.
Yeah. Also, it's worth pointing out that the same Hox genes that pattern the pharyngeal arches in fish are the same Hox genes that pattern it in us, right?
Yes.
And that's the point, right? The major point is that it's the same genes doing the same thing in these vastly different organisms, right? It's and also in birds.
They are
and
still the same. Yeah, they are still the same. They are still the same. Not exactly the same,
right.
but
Yes, exactly.
they are still very highly similar structures that have the same patterning and the same on internal anatomy with blood vessels and the same nerves. And they are the general term is pharyngeal pouches, I think.
Right.
Pharyngeal pouches, and in fish,
Pouches, arches,
the pharyngeal
whatever,
pouches become the gills, and in us they become other
Right.
structures. Yeah.
And that's the point, right? Is that we have the same structure which has the same anatomy specified by the same genes, and that's expected under common ancestry. That is not expected under intelligent design. There's no reason for that. And so the pharyngeal arches, the thyroid, postanal tail, notochord, dorsal hollow nerve cord. It's like, why do chordates? Let me rephrase that. Why are there organisms called chordates? Why is there a set of organisms that have all these characteristics at some point in their life? Why is that? What is the point of that? If they were intelligently designed, there's no reason for that to be the case. There isn't. You can ad hoc your way into a reason, but intelligent design does not predict nested hierarchies. Evolution predicts nested hierarchies. Okay. The standard story about peppered moths. Oh, you're good. By explaining that, number one, even if dark-colored moths predominated over light-colored moths due to selection pressures introduced by pollutants from Britain's Industrial Revolution, this merely demonstrates a change in the relative frequencies of light-colored and dark-colored moths, and thus is an example of microevolution rather than macroevolution. That's true. It's almost like no one argued otherwise.
Yeah.
Nobody said otherwise. Okay. I think there's a bit of they're forgetting the history. The point of Kettlewell's original experiment with the peppered moths, which was subsequently redone by Michael Majerus, there we go, was that Kettlewell was trying to demonstrate natural selection. Natural selection was inferred. Darwin inferred natural selection, a very good inference, I would say, but it was inferred. He didn't have direct observational evidence for natural selection. Kettlewell was trying to look for an example that might qualify as natural selection.
And if I'm not mistaken, this was still the time during what's called Darwin's eclipse, when natural selection was still contentious between other ideas.
Yeah. And so, there was this whole debate over whether it would be natural selection or like Lamarckian evolution, which was popular still in France, for instance.
Yeah,
because Lamarck.
You also that mutationism, like more of the they were the Mendelians basically. Back when the Mendelians were the competing camp before they synthesized with before they formed the modern synthesis with the selection.
Hugo de Vries was one of those guys in the mutationist camp. Yeah.
Yes.
And so by acting like it's just microevolution, they're kind of misunderstanding what the point of the experiment even was in the first place. It was never about trying to demonstrate macroevolution. Never at any point. It was about trying to find evidence for natural selection as a mechanism of evolutionary change. That's what the point was. So
they make seem like the researchers behind this moth experiments. I was like, oh, did this change between one color and the other color proves that the moths have a common ancestor with crabs? Like, okay, no, nobody said that. No, nobody said anything like that.
Right. When you read Origin of Species, which I highly recommend you do, it's kind of in two phases. The first phase of the book, you might say, it's like chapters like 1 through 10, basically, is he's just talking about the mechanisms of evolution, right? Or 1 through 9, whatever it is. He's just talking about how he envisions natural selection to act, like how variations arise. He was wrong about how variations arose, but whatever. And then how those variations could spread through the population due to the action of natural selection, as well as sexual selection. But more on that later. And then the second phase of the book was explaining how he could apply natural selection to deep time. So, like, how did organisms changing gradually eventually culminate in very different organisms? But the evidence that organisms do in fact change over generations is different from the evidence that all of life shares a common ancestor, right? You're looking at different forms of evidence. Now, of course, you can use like the fact that natural selection happens in your analysis of common ancestry, but it's not the only piece of evidence informing common ancestry. And Darwin didn't think it was. So, two, there is controversy over whether moths typically rest on tree trunks in the wild where they're eaten by birds. There really isn't. They do that.
Oh, well, can I
done.
As someone who has visited the industrial part of Germany, pretty much every week, I can assure you that pollutants due to the Industrial Revolution do not only discolor tree trunks. If you go to, let's say, Cologne in Germany, everything is gray. It's just like someone went over it with an airbrush. Everything is gray. It's not just the tree trunks. So why even bring this up? They bring this up because they found out that if you're going to take a picture of two moths, they're probably not going to sit still. So yes, they did nail down two moths on a tree trunk in order to take a picture of it. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen in nature, but you have to get your picture some way. I mean,
I use iNaturalist, and I've taken pictures of moths and butterflies on tree trunks. I have pictures in my phone on iNaturalist of moths on tree trunks. Like, this is nonsense. This is just ridiculous.
Also, someone has a question to you in the live chat. Someone has a question.
Oh, why would I read Darwin when I can watch you? Well, DM scientists or people wing. Por qué no los dos? You know, why not do both? Just read Darwin and also watch my videos. That's all I can say.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Exactly right. Thank you, Ness. Like, I always forget to say that. I'm terrible at self-promotion, as you all know.
I could be really mean. I could be really mean and say, okay, you can watch this for free. Whereas if you want to read Darwin, you have to buy the book. But then again,
that's not true.
Well, no, hold on. You might compensate that with some super chats. Pretend that you're buying the info. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can read Origin of Species for free on Project Gutenberg on the Bible, or on the also Gutenberg Bible on the internet. So yeah, that's one place you can read.
I still, there are multiple reasons for this. I still want Ray Comfort, who has been in Europe, by the way. He's been shouting in I think it was in Hungary or something in front of a church that he didn't like. He liked the church, but he didn't like the religion that they participated in inside.
Were they Catholics?
I think it was a Catholic church,
or Orthodox or something.
I think it was Catholic. It was a beautiful church. It has a very beautiful clock that a lot of tourists go visit just for that particular clock. But I want him to come
Oh,
to the
gotcha.
Netherlands and present me with a free copy of Darwin's book with his foreword in it, because I want to read the
Yeah.
foreword, actually. That would be hysterically funny. And I want to have a talk with him and record it. Everything. Record it and then
Does
post
he
it.
even do talks anymore? Does he
I-
still do talks? I haven't seen anything from Ray Comfort in I think
he
a couple years now.
no. I think it was 2 years back. He put out a message on Facebook, which I saw too late. Godless Engineer saw it in time, where he was inviting atheists to come talk to him, and then he
Oh,
posted the talk that he had with Godless Engineer on his channel, and then
I
Godless
would have loved to have
Engineer,
done that.
then Godless Engineer, the rat that he is, posted the entire thing unedited.
Oh no.
Yes, I mean, these pesky atheists always showing everything as if the truth matters. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Hovind, well, I mean, I'm sure him too, but yeah, Comfort is infamous, if anyone who is not aware, for doing like
Yeah.
cuts. He'll cut out parts of the video where the person like gives the answer, and he'll say, "I stumped him,"
Yes.
and it's like, no, you didn't. You
And Pat
he
Towel,
did that to PZ Myers.
Pat Towel
Yeah.
took that
He
to
also
an art form.
voices over his own question. He redoes his own question, like he voices over his original
Yeah.
question with a new question, and then
Yeah.
and keeps the answer the same of the response. Yeah, it's very dishonest.
Yeah, he's nuts. Matt Powell, fun fact, also did that to me when we had a chat
Yeah.
on Godless Cranium's channel years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he uploaded that video, but with all my speaking parts cut out.
Yes.
It was only him talking.
I think his video was about 15 minutes, whereas the entire thing was an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, something like that.
And
yeah,
he edited it
exactly.
down to 15 minutes so he could look good. That should.
I think it's funny because when I ask creationists on Twitter if they'll come on here and they're not cowards like or I mean usually they are cowards like the guy we invited on a few weeks ago. What they'll do.
I have one for you. I have one for you, and he's really he's a nice guy. I have a guy who wants to talk to you about.
All right, we'll talk about it after the stream. We'll talk about it after. But normally, what they say when I point out, I have a YouTube channel, and I have conversations on my YouTube channel, and I have perfectly fine, amicable conversations. They say, "Oh, you just steamroll people," by which I think they mean I explain the biology to these people. I think that's what they mean. But
yeah,
they never come on anyway because they're scared. Okay, and number 3. Light-colored moths are again beginning to predominate over dark-colored ones due to environmental laws reducing airborne pollutants, demonstrating oscillating selection rather than net evolutionary change. Again, that was never the point. Had nothing to do with anything. You're just grasping at straws.
Also, they got it by accident. It was demonstrating selection. Exactly. It was.
Yes.
And they think, it's supposed to be progressive evolution apparently. Like, they changed back, so it's not progressive evolution. Of course, nobody's saying it's not a thing that's accepted today. Even they think that the whole thing is to get bigger, stronger, and smarter. But no.
Well, I still think Kent Hovind.
There's no goal.
Yeah, Kent Hovind had the best criticism. It isn't natural selection. It's just the birds eating the kind of moss they see better. I mean,
that's that's not natural selection at all. How silly!
No, that's not natural selection.
How silly of me! Of course.
Why didn't I think of that?
Those arguments, those break my brain. I mean, really, it's not natural selection. It's just birds eating more of.
Listen, it's not natural selection. It's just differential reproductive success in a population. Obviously.
He
Yeah.
wasn't assassinated. He was murdered on the
Yes.
street.
Well, I
Um,
mean, in all fairness, an assassination is only if you're famous. If you're not famous, you're just
That's-
murdered.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Bad
Anyway.
example. Yeah.
Anyway, I can define adaptive radiation as the supposed, why supposed, rapid diversification of species after entering an empty habitat or niche. Do they think rapid or adaptive radiations don't happen? Because they say I can evaluate whether the Galapagos finches demonstrate adaptive radiation by arguing that even if the standard finch story is accurate and mainland South American finches migrated to the Galapagos Islands 14 million years ago, I don't think that's true, but okay. Their diversification to inhabit various habitats, I can read, I swear, demonstrates microevolution rather than macroevolution. Oh my god, this is a run-on sentence.
It's one sentence.
Oh my god.
It's still one sentence.
Oh my goodness. 1, shows small scale differences in beak shape, size, and feeding habits. 2, are often difficult to differentiate. And 3, retain the ability to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Oh my gosh, that was the longest sentence I've ever.
Sentence. Yeah.
That was the longest sentence I've ever. That was like a Victorian sentence right there. I can evaluate research by field biologists Peter and Rosemary Grant, which suggests that large beaked finches favored during the drought season experience a gradual reduction in average beak sizes when the drought ended, demonstrating oscillating selection rather than net evolutionary change. Okay. All right. Several things. First of all, technically, so it is actually debated whether the direct ancestors of the Galapagos finches, which is subfamily Geospizinae, came directly from South America, i.e., Ecuador, or whether they're in fact most or descended from Caribbean finches. There is actually debate over that, and there's a reason for that. A couple of reasons. So, one reason for the debate is that the Ecuador finches, and I'm drawing, I can't remember offhand what is it Melanospiza? I think. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've looked at it. Go watch the Finch's Tale. We did a whole video about this. Just go watch that. We did the Galapagos Finch's Tale where we talked about all this. The Ecuador finches
I had to bite my tongue.
Group.
Sorry, I had to bite my tongue again. I wanted to say that's on DVD number 4.
That's
sorry.
On DVD number 4.
Sorry,
yeah.
if you're going to refer to your own videos, Jackson, I am going to mock you.
No, you're right. It's very conceited. I know.
Well, our videos are free.
Yeah,
it's true. Our videos are free. You don't have to pay us a penny for them.
Well, Kent Hovins are too. You have to order them, copy them, and send them back, and then you're only out of the,
really?
the shipping costs. Yes.
Huh, okay.
Why copy? Why bother copying? Like, just put it on YouTube then or something. Like he's still living in the early 2000s or something. Like I don't know why.
Yeah.
Does he actually copy? Does he actually copy this as well?
He still talks about videotapes. So yeah.
Oh my god.
He hasn't evolved.
I'm honestly not surprised by that.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway. Does it actually?
I let you borrow my floppy disk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Ecuador finches actually form a family sister to Geospizinae. They're not paraphyletic to Geospizinae. Then once you get kind of further out phylogenetically, then you have like they're like paraphyletic. The Caribbean finches are paraphyletic to the like Geospizinae Ecuador fin or not. They're not finches. They're tanagers. Sorry, tanager groups. So basically, what ends up it could be the case that either you have the Caribbean tanagers who moved to Ecuador, diversified in South America, and then crossed over into the Galapagos. That could be one route. It's possible. Or another possible route is they started in the Caribbean and went and diverged. And so basically, you had one group radiating in South
Oh,
America
you
and
broke
another
up for
group.
you broke up for one split second. Can you repeat the sentence?
Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah. So, or the alternative right now is the Caribbean finches started in the Caribbean and split. So one clade went to or is in South America, and the other one hopped across Panama and then went straight down to the Galapagos.
Mhm.
Now, that is in fact how flamingos got to the Galapagos, Phenocopterus. So the flamingos went from the Caribbean, hopped to Panama, and then hopped down to the Galapagos. So it could be either way. Either one could be the case as of right now. We don't really know. So at any rate, I think that occurred like 2 to 3 million years ago, because I don't think the islands themselves are like any older than like 10 million years, if I remember correctly. Something like that. The Galapagos Islands are pretty young. I don't think it was 14 million years ago. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter all that much. um.
Uh,
So
Oh, sorry. I have to acknowledge this. Like somebody just made a
okay.
statement that cracked me up. Like Savage is saying, "Oh, a floppy disk is a good media for Kent because it holds roughly as much as he knows." And then somebody like Blocker Lider says that is really charitable towards Kent. Yeah, he's really.
That's very fair. Can't argue with that.
Yeah. All right. So
Um.
sorry about that. I had
Oh
to
no, no,
acknowledge
you're
it.
fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Um. So the finches, the tanagers, they're not finches that are on the Galapagos Islands. There are, what is it, like 13 species of them? 13 or 14 species. So these species typically don't inter. They can, but they typically don't interbreed with each other, and they form by and large discrete genetic units. Right? They are species. They typically breed within their species. And yes, hybridization events can happen because they're pretty young species. Or actually, well, no, it's not really very young, but I mean, they can hybridize to some small extent. It can happen, but broadly they don't. Broadly, it doesn't happen. They broadly have different niches, so they feed on particular foods on the different islands to minimize competition. There was a very famous study done by, I think it was David Lack, years ago, where he looked at how Geospiza, I think it was Fortis and Fuliginosa, like their beak sizes overlap in their range when they are allopatric, so when they live on different islands. But when these two become sympatric, they actually compete with each other, and so their beak sizes go in opposite directions. So one becomes smaller and the other becomes larger.
Mhm.
And again, this is to minimize competition. So they're not breeding with each other. They're in fact competing with each other for resources. And that competition, that natural selection, if you will, is
Yeah.
driving their beak sizes to go in opposite directions.
Mhm.
And
So
again, we
if
talked
you're
about that.
if you're competing, then that increases the risk of starvation, and hence it is a lower survivability or lower survival rate when you are actively competing or having to compete with somebody else who's doing the same thing as you are.
Mm-hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
if you hybridize when that is the case, then what you end up with, as we discussed in the the narrowmouth's tail, is you end up with hybrids which are who might be fertile, but who are not considered reproductively viable for members of either like purer species, right? So the hybrid is like intermediate in morphology or ecology or something like that, and so they're not appealing to either of the original parental species, right? And so yeah, so then nobody wants to mate. So even though there was a hybridization event, nobody wants to mate with the hybrid offspring, and so the hybrid offspring die. So that's still a post-zygotic boundary delineating these species, even if they can in fact produce offspring. The big bird hybrid can't breed with any of them. Yeah, exactly, same sort of thing, right? Um, so they show small scale differences in beak shape, size, and feeding habits. Well, yeah, they've only been separated for like a few million years. I don't know what you. I mean, so when they say small scale, they're trying to downplay the differences between the species. So, like Geospiza magnirostrus and Geospiza septentrionalis have different beak shapes. Geospiza magnirostrus has this really thick, strong, large beak for cracking nuts, but septentrionalis has this conical, pointy beak for attacking like Nazca and blue-footed boobies and drinking their blood. So you could say, yeah, okay, well, grand scheme, that's pretty small difference, but it's still great enough that they don't mate and reproduce with each other, and they have different ecological niches. They are, for all intents and purposes, different species. And that's macroevolution. Speciation is macroevolution. Are often difficult to differentiate. I don't care. That has literally nothing to do with anything. Cryptic species are often difficult to differentiate, but they're still different species. I don't care. And retain the ability to interbreed. And again, we already covered that, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, they are different. They are difficult to differentiate because they change. Oh, how surprising!
You're right. Yeah, exactly. I kind of like this. They're just field biologists, guys. They're just field biologists who've been doing this for 50 years. Who cares what they think? Who cares? If you guys haven't read it, read what is it? Is it Anthony? Oh, no, Jonathan Weiner. Sorry, read Jonathan Weiner's book, The Beak of the Finch. It's a really good book. Highly recommend. He talks all about the grant research and all the different studies that have been done on the Galapagos finches. It's really good. So what they're referring to again with the large-beaked finches were favored during the drought. That was in 1987. In essence, again, we talked about all of this on video number 4. We talked about this on the Galapagos finch's tail. We went into all the studies that were about that and all the details and everything, so you can go watch that. But again, it's not about oscillating selection. That's not the point. You can have oscillating selection because the actual environment they're living in is not changing drastically from year to year. When there are changes like the El Nino event or the La Nina event, whatever, that lasts for like, a year or two. So there is this selection for like a year or two, and then it slacks off. But that is not the case when the finches originally diverged on the island. So basically, when they originally diverged on the island, you have this one founder population, which then spread to different islands and underwent local selection for foods on those islands, those separate islands, which resulted in different species of finches. So by trying to write it all off as, well, it's just oscillating selection, that's not the case. There was a point where it was one homogeneous population that then became separated into multiple species. Okay, so it's really weird to me that they're like trying to downplay the fact that there are 13, 14 different species of finch, as though like oscillating selection explains that.
Yeah,
it's really weird to me.
It's just they want to say, oh, okay, it's evolution, but it's not evolution. That's what they want to say, and they don't define their terms because they want to be vague as possible, as vague as possible. Yeah.
I also I was on Orange Channel a little while back, and we talked about the Galapagos finches. It was that video with the docent who's like there's this girl who's talking to him, and I swear she has like Botox or something. Her face doesn't move. She has the same facial expression for the entire thing. Her face never moves. Her eyebrow, nothing moves. It's all static. And she's do what?
Go. So, I was just saying, like Botox even seems very crazy to me. Like Do
Good
you know
night.
what the active you know what the active ingredient is in Botox?
Oh, go ahead, say it.
It's like a toxin that the bacterium produces, and this bacterium causes botulism. And
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
toxin is like the single most toxic substance known to man, and then we use it as Botox. Anyway,
Yeah,
this
because
is
you're like petrifying your
yeah,
nerves, right?
yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, it's
we
great.
keep going. Sorry about that. Keep going.
But anyway, yeah, I swear her face was like Botox. It didn't move. But she's like arguing with the docent, like, oh, evolution not real, and they're talking about the Galapagos finches. And one guy in the audience cites this study that says like actually all Galapagos finch changes are epigenetic. And
Mm-hmm.
the study
Mm-hmm.
was on like 2 species, and one of those species didn't even display enough changes. That didn't display any statistically significant changes. So it was literally one species of finch that the study was like, it had some epigenetic changes. That was it. Just one species. You really got him, guys. It's so
Mm-hmm.
stupid. So stupid. Anyway, we can keep going.
Yeah.
They make me so upset. I can
And
define and
that's also
distinguish.
so it's just like it seems very strange to me that they think that epigenetics is like a dunk on evolution today.
Yeah,
I-
what's the deal with
it's
that? It doesn't make any
yeah.
sense. I don't
I,
get
th- I,
it.
th- I, think,
really.
I think they think it's just Lamarckian evolution, and they think, oh, Lamarckian is anti-Darwin, so that's so if I use this, it's just disproving the Darwinian
I
evolution
guess
thing.
it's
I don't
real
know.
stupid.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. But it's creationist. So, um, oh, no, that didn't help it at all. Okay, it's fine. I can define and distinguish between macroevolution and microevolution. Oh, I want to see that. As macroevolution produces large-scale changes. Oh, womp womp womp, including the evolution of higher taxa and fundamentally new biological features, while microevolution produces small-scale changes within a species.
There's a long
Well,
sentence without explaining anything.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
nothing in that sentence is defined. What is a
Yes,
large-scale
exactly.
change? What is higher taxa? What do you mean by higher taxa? What do you mean by new
What
biological
yeah.
features?
What counts as a fundamentally new biological feature? What explain your criteria before we proceed. Yeah, they never will. They never will.
Nope.
Yeah.
As we're gonna talk about in like the lungfish's tail, okay, all right, here you go. Here's a little tantalizing bit for the lungfish's tail. The only thing that was like new that came out of the fish to tetrapod transition was like fingers. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
just fingers. Everything else was already there. And like there's even debate as to like, what is the degree of homology between like fin rays and fingers. And like,
Yeah.
the genetic mechanisms underlying that and everything. And there's
However,
legitimate debate over that.
we discussed this 2 weeks ago, or
Yeah.
at least I
Yes, we
briefly
did.
discussed the
Uh-huh.
homology between fingers and fin rays. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like there's actual legitimate debate about that, but that's it. Everything else we discuss was already there. Lungs, the nostrils, they just
Yeah.
changed the
Oh.
position.
Are you
all the
saying a
bones.
lungfish has lungs? Are you
Hmm.
serious? I didn't know that.
The spine, the arm bones, everything was already there. Nothing, all the other parts other than fingers were already there. There was nothing fundamentally new that changed between like Eusthenopteron and Acanthostega. Like nothing, So anyway, all right. Embryology, dun dun dun. Recapitulation theory holds that the development of an organism, ontogeny, recapitulates its evolutionary history, phylogeny. Hence the famous phrase, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. In other words, at one point between your conception and birth, we won't tell you which point, because you can't know about that kind of stuff, you resembled a fish. Okay, so I guess they're saying, well, that's not really what ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny said. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny said it's not that you resembled a fish, it's that you were a fish. Your
Yeah, it's
ancestry passed through a fish stage. The current.
it's.
Go ahead.
I also sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like it's just that that normally they want to ridicule it as much as possible, but here they had an opportunity to actually ridicule it even further, but they couldn't. They didn't. They even failed in that regard.
Yeah, they kind of tripped
Yeah.
because it's wrong in the sense that yes, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Says that when you are developing, you actually go through a stage where you are a fish.
Yeah.
But we know that's not the case. As it actually happens, yes, you resemble a fish, a fish embryo, when you're in your phylotypic stage, which is not what ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny meant. So they kind of confused it there.
Yeah.
As Nestlig said, they had an opportunity to pillory the idea and they still messed up. For decades, the concept was taught to biology students as fact, although it has been known to be false for well over 100 years. Okay, so they're doing kind of a bait and switch here. So if it were taught, or if it were taught at some point, it would have been in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
But today, so if you say it's been known to be false for over 100 years, 100 years ago from today was the 1920s, which would have been probably after it would have like fallen out of favor, right?
Yeah.
It would have fallen out of favor, I think, late 1800s, early 1900s, but that was before 100 years ago. That was over 100 years ago. So I think both of those could be true.
It's almost like they are saying that the recapitulation was still thought even as recent as the late 20th century or something
Right.
like that. Like it's of course they don't explicitly state exactly which periods they are talking about. So it's again it's vague. It's deliberately vague.
Yes. The evidence shows that vertebrate embryos do not replay their supposed earlier evolutionary stages. Yes, broadly, that's true. Like we said earlier, there are like short-term examples to the contrary, but broadly, yes. You don't pass through a fish stage, you don't pass through an amphibian stage or a reptile stage or whatever. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some examples of recapitulation in a sense. You could say, however, one thing you could say in a broad sense, very broad, is that the development of the embryo recapitulates the development of complexity because it starts off very simple and gets progressively more complex. So you could very broadly and generically say that, but it doesn't really mean much of anything. You're not really saying anything profound about the nature of the embryo. So like why do it? There's no point there. Recapitulation theory has been promoted through inaccurate and fraudulent drawings created by Ernst Haeckel. They weren't fraudulent. The only example that creationists can find is that he accidentally used the same cutout for 3 pictures, and he corrected that in the second edition of his book. But of course, creationists don't care about that. They only care that he accidentally used the same picture 3 times, and for the rest of eternity, that's going to be the only thing they ever remember because they don't care about facts. Haeckel's drawings obscure the differences between the earliest stages of embryonic development. Not really. So Haeckel's embryos were the phylotypic stage, which is not the earliest stages of development. Those are before the phylotypic stage.
Yes.
Haeckel was just showing the midpoint on the hourglass that we were talking about, not the base. He was just showing up here the midpoint. That's what he was interested in.
Yeah.
So again,
Of course, like Haeckel had to draw these like in the same orientation and such
yes,
to illustrate the similarities. But of course, they think it's cheating to prove the point that you're trying to make.
right.
Yeah,
Which, and he explicitly said he was doing that. He said, "I'm going to
yeah.
orient them the same way, remove the maternal material, and make them the same size." Oh, here we go. Savage Quetzalcoatlus Third Humorous Cobra for $5 says, "These are the same people that claim that Frederick Douglass wouldn't protest racial injustice if he lived today." Yeah, I've heard that kind of crap. I'll speak to that for just one moment before we go back. Yeah, these are the people who who cite like MLK. They say the whole judge not by the color of their skin but by the content of their character, and that's it. That's the only thing they know from MLK. They, if you tell them like, hey, he also supported reparations and affirmative action, they're like, nope, none of that socialist nonsense. It's because they don't care. They don't care what he said. They don't care about him at all. If you look at pieces of like cartoons from when MLK led marches, peaceful protests, they look identical to the same cartoons that like Ben Garrison makes about like freaking like Black Lives Matter movement. It's the same stuff today. They've just whitewashed MLK. They pretend, like, oh, he wasn't a socialist. We don't worry about any of that
And
sort of
now that he is dead, so they can do whatever they want like that. Yeah, of
yes,
course.
yeah. Anyway,
Mhm.
so sorry, yeah, rant aside. Okay, you got me thinking about it. Okay. Though recapitulation theory has been removed from most textbooks today, Haeckel's drawings are still reprinted in modern biology textbooks for two purposes: to support common ancestry. They overstate similarities between embryos during their earliest stage. Again, it's not the earliest stages. They don't even seem to understand what the point of the embryos even was. And they allege that vertebrate embryos contain gill slits reflecting fish ancestry. We already dealt with this. It's not
Yes.
gill slits, they are pharyngeal arches. It's the fact that they have the same morphology, the same ontogeny, and they are
Yeah.
specified by the same genes. That's the point.
Yeah, they aren't just folds in the skin. They are specific structure with nerves and blood vessels, major nerves and blood vessels. That like
Right.
the vagus nerve and various. I think some of the blood vessels form the aortic arches, the aorta. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Of course, in fish, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No.
Oh.
I'm not gonna go. I want to mention something about like the blood vessels of fish, but let's just skip it. We already covered the
were you thinking of
gill
the
slits. Yeah.
Were you thinking of how like the pharyngeal arteries, like, so fish have 6 of them? We
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
what is it, 3, I think? And so the other the other arteries, sorry. The other pharyngeal arteries appear during our ontogeny, but then they disappear. They basically
Yes.
start growing and then stop and like degrade, which is really, really weird. Why would we do that? What's the point?
It's because like major blood vessels have to be rewired to go from the heart to the lungs, back to the heart, and then to the rest of the body, which doesn't happen in fish. But because we had to like rewire these during even seen in development, these blood vessels are rewired, and some of them are just dissolved. They don't develop anymore, and then that's what gives rise to this rearrangement blood vessels. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's and also in primitive fish, like, or very like basally derived fish among like the actinopterygians, for example, like gars, bowfins, paddlefish, sturgeon, their gas bladder, their swim bladder is very, very it connects to a lot of blood vessels, a lot more blood vessels than in teleosts, which are the more advanced, more derived actinops. And the reason is the swim bladder is a derivative of the lung. So Bashirs and reedfish still have lungs. They're the most basally derived living actinops, and so
Yes,
they still have
they are like
lungs.
the actinopterygians. First they divide into two groups. Like I think one is the gars, the first one to split off, and then the bichirs, or maybe the other way around.
Well, you have
Yeah.
bichirs and reedfish first, then
Yeah.
paddlefish and sturgeons, then
Yes.
gars and
Yes.
bowfins. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's they are like the at the base the first lineages to split off from all the other raven fish, and it is interesting to note that since these early raven fish was like air breeding, and also they are also fresh water like gars and bowfins and bichirs and also sturgeons are freshwater fish, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
It's very likely that the common ancestor of the bony fish, like both the raven fish and the lobe fin fish, within which we are part of, that they were freshwater fish at the beginning.
Guys,
Yeah.
I don't know
Common
if you
ancestor.
guys have seen a bashir before. If you haven't, you
Mhm.
need to. They look
Yeah.
like they look like lobefin fish.
Mhm.
They really do. They have lungs. They have fleshy fins. And in fact, they can move across land, and when they do, their fins undergo development like lobefin fish. This was determined experimentally.
Yeah.
Bashirs, they really just look like Eusthenopteron. You know, that's that sort of group. They're crazy looking.
And the only thing that distinguishes at least one of the main differences between those raven fish and the actual lobefin fish
Yes.
is that they are monopodial. There's only one bone connecting the limb with the rest of the body. They are they have one bone, the humerus basically. That's what
Yeah.
the coelacanth have, and the bichirs don't have. The bichirs don't.
Yeah.
I think bichirs have two, or at least more than one bone connecting the fins to the rest of the body. Yeah.
But yeah, and they're crazy. They're crazy looking. They do look like, for all the world, like little, kind of like Eusthenopteron little guys. They're pretty crazy. Didn't sharks, and rays have bony ancestors? Yes, sharks and rays are secondarily cartilaginous. Yes. Because
it's very interesting that the pattern of extinction among the fish in the Devonian is that either fish could breathe air, like the bony fish and the lobefin, or the bony fish, raven fish, and the blobefin fish, or they were like the sharks where they lost many of the heavy armor, basically. Those are the only ones that survived the extinction event. Like, and then of course you have a few examples of the lampreys and hagfish. Those are the only ones surviving. Yeah.
I'm a bit late, Jackson, but so there you go.
There he is. Yeah, right
There we
there.
go. Yeah.
And that, I mean, yeah, just look at that guy. He looks like a little Eusthenopteron kind of dude. It's crazy. They're so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, they have lungs. They can move across land, like brief stretches of land. I had one, and I donated him to the local aquarium where I work, and now I get to see him at work all the time, which is super cool. These guys are in Africa, so it's bashirs and reedfish, which is or pedowictes, and the bashir is a polypterus, and so yeah, they're super cool guys. They're really, really cool. Highly recommend you guys check those out. Some of them get really big. Like there's I think it's the ornate bashir, which can get like over a foot long. Mine was just a little Senegal bashir. They only get like 6 or 7 inches. You know, not very long. But yeah, thank you, Peter.
Okay.
I love them. They're real neat little guys. I love them. I named mine Bob because he's Bob the Bisher. Anyway, that fish looks like a lizard. Looks like the lizard in my yard. Yeah, he kind of does, doesn't he? Okay. Anyway. Blah blah blah. Where were we? Have folds on the neck, not gill slits. Yeah, we already talked about that. some evolutionary scientists still claim that vertebrate embryos are similar during a midpoint stage. Yeah, called the pharyngular or phylotypic stage. Yes, that's still true. Crazy stuff. There are minor similarities. What does minor similarity mean? But the overall embryos are quite different, include body size, body plan, growth patterns, timing development. Yes, okay. I agree with all of those to an extent. So yeah, body size, obviously, like a guppy is going to have a different body size as an embryo from like an elephant. So obviously, yeah. Um, growth patterns, again, yes. Obviously, timing of development, yeah. Um, body plan, I no. Uh, the way that
It's
they so I
yeah.
agree with body plan or sorry, body size, growth pattern, and timing of development, but that has nothing to do with the actual morphological similarities. Those are just like the size. Okay, yes, the embryos can be different sizes. I don't see how that's a problem. The actual timing of development, again, I don't. When it develops, if it develops faster or slower, that doesn't mean that it's not related. That's not what that means. The only one of those I actually disagree with is body plan. Because the way that intelligent design advocates typically use body plan is in reference to the phylum. But vertebrates have a phylotypic stage, but their phylotypic stage is not shared with other phyla. So I don't understand why body plan is in here. Go ahead, Nissig.
Yeah, I was my point exactly. Like they make a big fuss about phyla when it comes to the Cambrian explosion, but
Mm-hmm.
then now they are saying like, oh, the body plan doesn't matter at all. It's just trivial similarities. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're just minor, minor differences. Um, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, three of those have nothing to do with like the actual morphology, other than size. I don't. Yeah, they're
and you know they will. I think it's highly likely that they will cover the Cambrian explosion, and then and when they do, oh, then the body plans become very important for some
Mm-hmm.
reason.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yep. It's darned if you do, darned if you don't. There's no consistency. But yeah, we talked about that. Okay, we can keep scrolling down.
Before we keep scrolling down, have you looked at the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
we got about 9 minutes. The peppered moths. Okay, yeah, I guess we'll just start with the peppered moths next time. Even though I'm sure we all know I'm sure we've already covered all the arguments they're gonna make earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll just cover it next time. All right, yeah, so we can go back to our main screen.
E?
Do you guys feel educated yet?
It feels like having watched,
Very educated.
and if you watch Kent Hovind videos, there was literally nothing new in this. Also, not a lot of difference between that and Hovind's stupid claims.
You're right.
So
Yeah, no, the like folds in the neck thing. I heard that from Kent Hovind first. So
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing to see
Yeah.
that repeated here by a more respectable organization, you know?
same
Kind
thing.
of crazy.
Same thing for the peppered moth. The first one that I heard is from, but this is because I didn't know anything about young Earth creationism. I just bumped into a Kent Hovind video, and then started
Mm-hmm.
trying to find more videos. So maybe that's why I found pretty much every single claim from Kent Hovind. He might not have been the first, but
Mm-hmm.
he's the most resilient one, making the exact same claims
Right.
over decades while being corrected every single time. But yeah,
Yeah.
apparently it's
Yeah,
it's a
so this
thing.
has been pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because so the title of this is called Fakes and Mistakes.
Mhm.
And what's intriguing is so far they've mentioned only one alleged fake, but it's they haven't identified any mistakes in either the research about the finches or about the peppered moth. They didn't identify any mistakes or fakes. So it's
No.
really curious to me that this section is called fakes and mistakes when there's like
They claim that
one?
Haeckel is a fraud. They claim that Haeckel is a fraud. That's one thing that they claimed here.
well, right, but
Mhm.
that's the only one. It's just the
Yeah.
Haeckel's a fraud because all the embryos are fake, which is nonsense. It's totally bogus. The claim or to go from he accidentally like had the same cutout for 3 of his pictures, 3 out of like however many, which is it was a lot, lots and lots of pictures, and like he was called out correctly, and he changed it, which was the correct thing to do.
And may
so
I add slight note? He was not put on trial by the University of Jena, who then forced him
that
to.
never happened.
That never happened. That only happened in Hoven's mind, and from there it has percolated in through other people's minds. Because I think Ken Ham makes the exact same claim. It never happened.
Well, there was a we found it one time, like there was like a newspaper article from the early like 1900s or something that made this claim, but they didn't reference anything. And if you search online like any version of like Haeckel University of Jena, you won't find anything. There's nothing.
I forgot who it was. Someone actually contacted the university, and they did the research, and there's no such thing. Oh, even the University of Jena confirmed that never happened.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just nonsense. It was made up. It was made up by creators.
And even if we assume that Haeckel actually made a fraud with his drawings, we don't accept his ideas, and currently we mainly use photographs of embryos in the textbook. So, but of course they still aren't happy with that either.
The dumbest argument against the pictures is that they have now replaced the fraudulent pictures, which aren't true, which are completely made up, by photographs.
Still fraud. Yeah.
They took
the real organisms.
They took a picture of an embryo that doesn't exist and put it in the textbook.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And this is exactly why they keep complaining about Haeckel, even though textbooks now have mainly have photographs. Because how can how can you claim that photographs are fraudulent? How can you
know
do
what? I'm
that?
gonna go get. I have a Campbell biology. I'm gonna go. Let me do that right now before we end this. Hold on. I'm gonna turn off my camera for a second. So I'm not wearing pants. You don't get to see.
In the meantime, we juggle. In the meantime, we juggle.
Yes.
Yay. Play the waiting in an elevator theme.
That's something that I haven't prepared for. I should have or something like that. If only my dog would attack me on command, we could at least have some entertaining video of my dog attacking me.
We need the dog right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Wave your finger at him. Wave your finger at him. Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna work.
Let's see.
No, finger doesn't work either. Hey. Oh.
Actually, wait, is this the right one?
Nothing.
There's definition of species. Heterochrony, blah blah blah.
Like, what is his trigger? Like, what triggers your dog?
I have no clue.
To do that.
It just happens. It
no clue.
Goes click in his brain, and then I end up putting all the furniture back up again because he knocks over everything. So, but it's still fun. I love him.
Well, sorry, I'm trying to find a. Trying to see if they have a picture of it in here.
Like, what version are you at? Maybe I can also help looking up.
I'm looking at. Well, this is Campbell and Reese biology. Old version.
I also had Campbell books. Yeah.
Let's see. Ecology, evolution, biology and systematics. Oh goodness, this is gonna take me forever to find
I think you can look at. I think perhaps it's best to look at like evolution, homology, perhaps. That's probably the main chapters.
I
that
just
they
checked.
used.
They had like some. They didn't have Haeckel's embryos, but they had some like some illustrations. Trying to see if I can, or maybe I can check a different one. I don't know. Maybe next time. Maybe next time when we start, I'll find an example.
I can look up my version, but
Okay.
I cannot show it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's.
Oh.
I don't have time to go through all this. It's
No.
gonna take forever. Okay. Anyway. Let me see. I have the Living World that might have a picture in it. I don't know. We'll do it next time. We'll do it next time. I'll find a picture in one of these books and I'll show you guys next time. Anyways. Okay. Anyway, we're at the hour mark now. You would like to write a textbook one day, Dr. Tapioca Weasel? Well, I have thoughts on textbooks. If you want to write one, have at it. But I have spicy thoughts on textbooks. Anyway, we're at 9 o'clock at my time. Not unlike the rest of you time traveling heathens.
Oh, I found it. I found an example.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it's the 11th edition of Campbell Biology, and it's on it's discussed. Let's see the chapter called what's the chapter called?
You're breaking up, Nestle.
My baby. I think my laptop is trying to load my the file of my Campbell digital Campbell. That's perhaps why it's loading. The chapter is called Descent with Modification, Chapter 22, a Darwinian View of Life. At least it's in my version.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, you found it. Yeah. Oh.
And
I don't know if
it's a few pages down. A few pages down. It's my example.
Yep. So if you look right there.
Yes, that's the example. Yeah, the same example as I have.
Those are photographs. Those are not illustrations. And look, they look pretty darn similar.
Yeah. One's a chicken and
a human and a chick embryo. Yep.
Yeah.
And they both have pharyngeal pouches and a post-anal tail. Huh, who would have thunk it? Thank you, Nestle. Thank you. I was looking in the wrong place. Fantastic. Yep. So there you go. Not Haeckel's drawings. Actual just straight up pictures. So do you guys know evolution is just a theory? I think someone told me that. I think. Not sure. Anyway. Alrighty. Well, that was fun, question mark. Do you guys have anything you want to plug before we head out?
Well, I'm back on my regular schedule, doing 4 shows a week, 3 on Ross channel and 1 on this. And I'm also setting up a conversation with a guy that I now found out that has been pretty much on every channel already. I didn't know. A young Earth creationist, predestination, presuppositionalist, not Calvinist guy called Joe Ensley.
Okay.
I'm really surprised that a lot of people had him on, and he's made some contradicting statements during their shows, and they didn't pick up on that. So I'm hoping to do that. People might have seen him on Godless Engineer, who called him the ZZ Top version of Ray Comfort, and he now has a T-shirt.
ZZ Top?
Yeah, he's got this long beard, so well, he doesn't look ZZ Top enough, I think, but his beard is too transparent. You can see the T-shirt through the beard, so not real.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm going to have a conversation with. He looks like a cool guy to talk to, but have a few things that he has said on several channels that I need to prod him with. I mean,
Okay, fair enough.
yes, he's weird in some way. He makes claim. He made videos how to witness to an atheist, and then basically got butchered by every atheist that has a decent channel. And then he made a second video because the first one wasn't aimed at atheists. No, I get that. But if you want to proselytize to an atheist and want to have some kind of effect, then you should listen to the input of atheists if they're criticizing your video teaching other Christians to talk to us. Might be better if you first talk to us and then figure out what works. Because it's basically same thing. The Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says that atheists don't exist because the Bible says. So, yeah. Doesn't work that way.
Everyone knows in their heart of hearts.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. We reject
What about
God
you, Nestle? You got anything?
I do have an interesting story, but I will tell you after we go off air.
That is
you're just
very
gonna
mean.
tease
That
the
is
live
very
audience?
mean
Yeah,
towards the
so
audience.
mean. Wow, Nestle.
It has details that are private, so yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody in the live chat. I appreciate all of you being here and watching. Thank you, Peter and Nestle, for joining me as always. I really appreciate it.
Always fun.
And we will see all of you next time.
Bye, everyone.